The rain poured down in sheets as Jake stumbled home from the bar, his jacket soaked and his head buzzing from one too many beers. He hadn't planned to stay out so late, but the game had gone into overtime and the drinks kept coming. Now, all he wanted was something greasy and comforting to soak up the alcohol. He pulled out his phone and ordered a large meat lover's pizza from Papa Luigi's, the only place still open at this hour. The confirmation text came through instantly. Your order will be delivered in 30 minutes. Thank you for choosing Papa Luigi's. Jake sighed in relief and trudged up the stairs to his apartment. He kicked off his wet shoes, tossed his jacket on the floor, and collapsed onto the couch to wait. 30 minutes came and went, then 45, an hour. Jake checked his phone, but there were no updates. Frustrated, he called the pizzeria. The line rang, and rang before a voice finally answered a low, guttural growl that made Jake's skin crawl. Papa Luigi's, what do you want? Yeah, I ordered a pizza like an hour ago. Where is it? There was a long pause, followed by a wet, choking sound that might have been laughter. It's on its way. Be patient. The line went dead. Jake stared at his phone, unease creeping into his gut. He told himself it was just a prank call, but the voice had sounded so wrong. He decided to wait a little longer. At exactly midnight, there was a knock at the door. Jake jumped up, his hunger momentarily overriding his unease. He opened the door to find a delivery guy standing there, his face obscured by the shadow of his cap. He held the pizza box in one hand, his other hand stuffed in his pocket. The rain had stopped, but the air felt heavier, colder. That'll be $20, the delivery guy said, his voice flat and lifeless. Jake handed him the money, careful not to touch his gloved hand. As he took the box, he noticed something strange. The delivery guy wasn't wearing a Papa Luigi's uniform. In fact, he wasn't wearing any logo at all, just a plain black jacket that seemed to absorb the light around it. Thanks, Jake said, closing the door quickly. He locked it and carried the box to the kitchen, his unease growing with every step. The box felt heavier than it should, and it was too warm, as if it had just come out of the oven moments ago. He opened the lid and recoiled. The pizza was wrong. The cheese was bubbling and blackened, the pepperoni slices curled and charred. The smell was nauseating, a mix of burnt meat and something metallic. Jake gagged and slammed the lid shut. He grabbed his phone to call the pizzeria and complain, but the screen was filled with static. The same guttural voice from before crackled through the speaker. Eat it. Jake dropped the phone and backed away from the box. The air in the apartment grew colder, and the lights flickered. The box began to shake on the counter, the lid rattling as if something inside was trying to get out. Jake's heart pounded as he grabbed a knife from the drawer, his hands trembling. The lid flew open, and the pizza oozed out, the cheese stretching like melted plastic. The pepperoni slices began to move, squirming like insects. Jake screamed as the toppings detached from the pizza and skittered across the counter, leaving trails of black sludge. The cheese bubbled and hissed, forming into a grotesque face with hollow eyes and a gaping mouth. Eat it! The face gurgled, its voice echoing through the apartment. Jake stumbled backward, tripping over his own feet. The delivery guy's voice came from behind him, low and menacing. You ordered it. Now eat it. Jake turned to see the delivery guy standing in the doorway, his face still hidden in shadow. His jacket dripped with black ooze, and his gloved hands twitched as he stepped closer. Jake swung the knife, but it passed through the delivery guy like he was made of smoke. The pizza continued to ooze across the floor, the toppings writhing and hissing as they closed in on Jake. The delivery guy's laughter filled the room, deep and guttural, as the cheese face stretched toward Jake, its mouth opening wider and wider. The last thing Jake saw before the darkness swallowed him was the note scrawled on the inside of the pizza box lid. No refunds. The next morning, the apartment was empty. The pizza box sat on the counter, clean and untouched, except for a single slice missing. The delivery guy stood on the sidewalk outside, his face still hidden, as he waited for the next order to come through. Somewhere, in the distance, a phone rang. It started with a late-night craving. Sarah had been studying for hours, her textbook spread across the table, when her stomach growled loudly. She glanced at the clock, 11:47 p.m. Too late to cook, but not too late for pizza. She pulled up the number for the only place that delivered this late, Midnight Pie. The voice on the other end was deep and gravelly, almost mechanical. Midnight Pie, what's your order? Sarah hesitated for it. There was something off about the tone, but she brushed it off. Large pepperoni, extra cheese, she said, and can you make it quick? Be there in 20, the voice replied before the line went dead. Sarah waited, her apartment eerily quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. When the knock came, it was sharp and sudden, making her jump. She opened the door to find a tall, thin man standing there, his face shadowed by the brim of a red cap. He held the pizza box in one hand, his fingers long and pale, almost skeletal. That'll be $15, he said, his voice the same unsettling monotone as on the phone. Sarah handed him the money, avoiding his gaze. As she took the box, their fingers brushed, and his skin was ice cold. She shuddered and quickly shut the door. The pizza smelled amazing, but something felt wrong. The cheese was too gooey, the pepperoni too perfectly round. She took a bite, and it was delicious, almost too delicious. She couldn't stop eating, slice after slice, until only one piece remained. That's when she noticed the note scrawled on the inside of the box lid in jagged red letters. Thanks for the tip. See you tomorrow. Sarah frowned. She hadn't left a tip. She tossed the box in the trash and tried to forget about it, but that night, she had strange dreams. She was standing in a dark kitchen, the smell of burning cheese filling the air. A figure stood at the stove, its back to her, stirring a pot of bubbling sauce. When it turned around, it had no face, just a wide, gaping mouth filled with rows of jagged teeth. She woke up sweating, her heart pounding. The clock read 3:33 a.m. From the kitchen, she heard a faint sound, a slow, rhythmic knock, knock, knock. She froze. The knocking grew louder, more insistent. Finally, she forced herself to get up and crept to the kitchen. The pizza box was on the counter, its lid open. The last slice was gone. The next night, Sarah tried to ignore her hunger, but by midnight, it was unbearable. She told herself she wouldn't call, but her fingers dialed the number on their own. The same voice answered. Midnight Pie, what's your order? Large pepperoni, she whispered, unable to stop herself. Be there in 20. This time, when the knock came, Sarah peered through the peephole. The delivery guy was standing there, his face still hidden, but something was different. His posture was wrongy, shoulders hunched, his neck twisted at an unnatural angle. She opened the door just enough to take the box, her hands trembling. That'll be $15, he said. Sarah handed him the money. As she did, she caught a glimpse of his face under the cap. His skin was gray and cracked, like old cheese, and his eyes were hollow, black voids. She slammed the door and locked it. The pizza tasted even better than before, but she couldn't enjoy it. The note inside the box was longer this time. You're a loyal customer. We appreciate that. One more order, and you'll be part of the family. Sarah threw the box away and vowed never to call again. But the next night, at exactly midnight, her phone rang. She didn't answer, but the voicemail clicked on. The gravelly voice filled the room. Your order is ready. We're outside. Sarah's blood ran cold. She looked out the window and saw the delivery guy standing on the sidewalk, staring up at her apartment. In one hand, he held a pizza box. In the other, he held a long, sharp knife. The knocking started again, louder this time. It wasn't coming from the door, it was coming from inside the kitchen. Sarah turned to see the pizza box on the counter, its lid slowly opening on its own. The last slice was back, but it wasn't pepperoni. It was something dark and glistening, something that smelled like iron. The knocking grew faster, more frantic. Sarah backed away, but the box began to shake violently. The slice slid out, oozing onto the counter, and the note inside the box glowed red. Welcome to the family. The door burst open, and the delivery guy stepped inside, his mouth stretching into a grotesque smile. Sarah tried to scream, but no sound came out. The last thing she saw was the knife glinting in the moonlight as he whispered, Delivery for Sarah. Compliments of the chef.